which means, look, unions are important, no question about it. But the state union, I believe, has benefits that are so rich that that even when you move to federal government, you don't take the federal
Give me
program.
an example. Give me an example.
Okay, so for maintenance drugs, those of us with state health care, for maintenance drugs, so if you had high blood pressure, cholesterol, thank you, heart, you pay zero, not a dime. For any maintenance drug, you have diabetes, zero. If I do a prescription drug, or I do a generic drug, I pay $5. I pay $10 for a prescription drug. No matter what the prescription drug is, I pay $10. I pay $15 to see a doctor. That's it. There's no deductible. There's no other payments coming out of my pocket. That's it. If you added $5 across the board, in the first year you saved the state $150 million.
Well, Mike, is that a fair characterization?
Pension. 25% of state employees pay 0% on their pension. 25% pay 0% towards their pension. Everybody else, 2%. That's crazy. We can't, the national average is 7. You can't keep that up. Now you want to talk about those structural changes and take that $150 million and put it into education? Sign me up.
Mike, is that a fair characterization?
Well, I'm not going to argue with his numbers. His numbers are what they are. I'm also not going to get into a tit for tat with the co-leader of the Senate here. Look, I think what Len is saying. Right, I know. I think what Len is saying is from his point of view is a fair point, which is if you're willing to talk about the things that they want to see, we should be willing to come to the table on other things. Just sort of to circle back on why we're here, do I think that those things are realistic this session? No, I don't. I think we're probably going to be too entrenched. I don't think we're going to see any revenue increases. I hope I'm wrong. I think Len and Marty are terrific friends and negotiators in the Senate. They may be able to hammer something out with the House leadership, but I'm a pessimist on that. I don't think we are. So I do think when it comes to education funding, we're going to be at a zero-sum game. And I think we're going to be at a point where I think you're going to see in a few weeks the governor propose a formula similar to something that I spoke about earlier, which means that a district like Mr. Steinberg's there, he's a representative from the Westport area, is going to get less money under the governor's proposal. And George made a great point. It's not just the ring suburbs and the urban districts, but the poor rural districts are going to get more because you're looking at the true metrics, student poverty, et cetera. So look, I would love to see us hammer out those things. I think what's more realistic that's going to happen is that's not going to happen this session. In 2018, which is a gubernatorial race and another set of legislative races, that will be a referendum on these ideas for candidates.
Now, I want to get to questions from the audience, but a lightning round before we do. We can start with Gary. Donald Trump has nominated Betsy DeVos to be the new education secretary. And depending who you believe, she's either a needed new voice to shake up a broken system, or Darth Vader with a plan to bleed traditional public schools dry and ram through new charters, regardless of performance, revive vouchers, and remove protections for victims of campus sexual assault. Darth Vader or needed new voice? Lightning round.
I don't think she's either, but I watched that hearing yesterday, and I think she's not qualified for the position.
I would say that the teachers I've talked to are deeply, deeply skeptical.
I definitely think she is a new kind of education secretary that will present us with a new kind of challenges.
No, wait, you don't get to pass the mic yet. What do you think? Are her ideas going to be the kind of change we need in public education?
I don't know that we know enough about her ideas yet to know whether or not they're the type of change we need. From listening to some of the hearings, I'm not sure that she's fully informed about what her ideas might be.
She's a big advocate of school vouchers. She's a big advocate of charter schools. She said that she doesn't agree with the campus protections.
So, I mean, I think some of the issues she's talking about, right, also the Department of Education has considerably less control over what happens in states and public education than a lot of people think it does, right? So whether or not we have charter schools is controlled by our state government, not by the federal government.
I was talking about that with Jen before, is maybe Bill Bennett wanted to wipe out the education department under Ronald Reagan. Arnie Duncan wanted to have this aggressive change in how the federal government can help steer. In fact, were we really having the right discussion and she doesn't even really matter? Is it really just up to Len and Mike and George what's going to happen as opposed to Betsy DeVos?
Education is primarily a state-controlled issue, right? I mean, when you talk about school funding, right, you have the Rodriguez case from 1973, which essentially took the federal government completely out of the mix on what state school finance systems look like. So I think particularly when it comes to school finance, this is an issue that is going to be decided, within our state legislature, with our state level leaders, and that the federal Department of Education is going to have very little influence or input onto what happens here in Connecticut with our school
Let's
funding
finish
system.
just around on Betsy